things as a cannabis law reformer I wanted to bring up is when I talk to the politicians, they always use this, what about the children? You know, what about the children? What message are we sending to children? We don't want to advocate, you know, use of drugs. But yet you see on television all the time, pharmaceutical ads saying, hey, try prescription, whatever. You know, and you always see happy, smiley faces using whatever type of drugs, and they keep promoting drug use. You know, whether it's psychoactive or not, they promote the use of drugs. They also promote the use of alcohol, both beer and liquors, and it's celebrated. And I asked our politicians, I was like, why can we not get these ads? If you don't want to encourage drug use at all, why do we allow the pharmaceutical companies to advertise? Realistically, the pharmaceutical companies should be training the doctors on the medicines they develop. And the doctor should understand these medications and discuss the treatment options with their patient. And it shouldn't be a situation between a doctor and the patient of what the best course of treatment is for the patient. It shouldn't be, you know, advertised. People shouldn't sit there and see all these drugs with happy, smiling faces when they have so many side effects, you know. And this literally does. Yes, it does. And it doesn't make any sense to me that it is illegal. It is the money. It is the money issue, and there are several people that would benefit. Not just pharmaceutical companies, that's the obvious one. The other one is the hemp issue, which can be used for manufacturing and other things, building materials, cosmetics, whatever, cooking. Hemp has so many uses. It's a food, it's a fiber, and it's a fuel. Well, who would lose out if that's legalized? The chemical companies, you know, who make the pesticides, who make the fertilizers. These guys would lose too, and they also lobby to keep drugs illegal because they don't want hemp legal. You know, so we're kind of getting hit on all sides. It's not just, you know, law enforcement likes the easy arrests. So you notice that they always say that we don't make the laws, we just enforce them, but yet they keep showing up in uniform to fight against the laws changing. They kind of like the easy arrests and everything else, and if they're truly wanting to serve the public and public safety, they wouldn't be harassing non-violent cannabis consumers who aren't really affecting anybody. I can understand if they are affecting other people, if they are causing a nuisance, that would be different, but they tend to overcrowd our prisons with non-violent cannabis users. So, yes. Yes. There's responsible use on drugs and there's irresponsible use on drugs. And of course we don't want people using irresponsibly. Use liquor, for example, beer. You want people drinking responsibly, socially. You don't want them binge drinking. You don't want them falling over drunk and having parties and vomiting all over the place. That's irresponsible use. You don't want people getting high 24/7 and shirking their job or shirking. We don't want that. We want responsible use. If you do it at the end of the day to relax, outstanding. I mean, it's not harmful. You're not hurting anybody, you know, at all but yourself, if you're hurting yourself at all.
I mean, that's the only place where you're being hard to protect our children is because it is the peer pressure, and but they're so immature, they're not able to handle certain things responsibly. Everyone's different, but once legalized, alcohol, our children are able. It would be the same thing. They grew up with alcohol or adults. You know, so there's a similar amount of peer pressure mechanisms, marijuana, and there's no difference. If your parent has to put charge on kids,
okay. How I'd like to see drug law reforms. I would like to see drugs as a medical issue, not a legal issue. I'd like us to recognize the fact that use does not equate abuse. And people who have actual drug problems don't need incarceration, they need treatment. And so if we handle drugs as a medical issue and not a legal issue, if people aren't causing any problems, there's no reason to get the police involved. There's no reason to overburden our court systems. There is no reason to pack our prison systems. If people aren't bothering anybody, they don't need to have law enforcement called in on them. Let's treat it as a medical issue. We need to tax it, regulate it, and educate. And the taxation that we get from selling it, because there is a market for it, it's a very lucrative market, we would get a lot of tax revenue with that. And with the tax revenue, we could actually use it for harm reduction purposes, harm reduction programs, treatment centers and such. Regulate, we can set up age restrictions and check IDs. We can keep it out of the hands of children a lot better than we do now. Because right now, the black market criminals, they don't care if it's sold to children on school grounds, during school hours, they don't care. So, if we regulate it, have ID checking adults, much like you'd see at our convenience stores, sir, can I see your ID for that? And you do. It's harder for kids to get alcohol and cigarettes than it is for cannabis. So, prohibition is not working. We've got to change it to something that does work. Educate. We need to give truthful, honest education about the benefits and the problems with drug use. It has to be truthful. It can't be propaganda, it can't be scare tactics. It has to be honest education. And when people have honest materials before them and they know the pros and the cons, they'll tend to make the right decision. So, but if you try to scare them and give them propaganda, that usually turns them away. And like I said, we shouldn't mandate the use of cannabis, but it should be an option. If the doctor wants to use it, cool, he can use it. If he doesn't want to use it, that's his option as a medical professional. Yes, some doctors can prescribe it. Actually, I shouldn't say prescribe, because prescribe is handled under federal guidelines. They have a First Amendment right to free speech. Doctors give recommendations for medical marijuana. They don't give a prescription. You cannot prescribe it. Prescriptions are, like I said, a federal guideline. But they do look at your treatment, they look at your health records, and they can determine if cannabis is right for their condition. And so then these doctors, yes, there are certain doctors that tend to recommend more than others. Those are the ones that are more educated up on the plant. If they know about cannabis and what it can do, then they're more likely to prescribe it. Or, I keep saying prescribe it, but recommend it. So, does anybody have any other questions? No? Thank you for your time. Oh.
I heard you had to 5 states away from
We're trying to get to 26. That would be the majority. Right now we have 16 states that allow medical marijuana. If we can hit 26, that would be the majority. So I believe that would be the tipping point when we get more than half. And like I said, we have the Jackie Burkett Medical Marijuana Act. If you do support cannabis as a treatment option, it's not whether you like it or not, if you want it as an option, please support the Jackie Burkett Medical Marijuana Act. Contact your legislators. The easiest way to do that is go online, use your computer, and say, who are my legislators? It'll bring you up to a government site. You type in your address, and it'll tell you who your legislators are. And so it's a very easy process. You can write to them. You can pick up the phone. It gives you their phone number. You can call them and tell them you support, drug law reform or whatever.